Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with children's authors Angela and Charles Todd. They are the best-selling authors of the children's illustrated rhyming book, Money is Easy, the first of a 4-book series. From their created IP Money Mike and the Gang, a new super cool cast of characters who reveal biblical secrets to success. For the Todds, kids taking hold of money management by the time they can read is a crucial part of becoming the lender and not the borrower. The couple are no strangers to living life in the fast lane, and that led to bankruptcy, divorce, and depression. Living a pseudo dream of running nightclubs, running from the IRS, and living in sin. All of that changed when they found out a baby was on the way. They have a fascinating story. Enjoy this interview.
Thanks for rescheduling this. I appreciate you taking some time out today.
Thank you, for sure. And thanks for, being in it. You're doing all these interviews and you're working it, and it's awesome. You have so much content, and the people you're interviewing are pretty awesome too. So it takes one to know one, right?
Oh, yeah. I love it. It's wonderful. The way I want to start this off here, as a husband and wife duo, I was actually going through my feed today, and I know a couple that sells real estate. I've often wondered how that dynamic works, with, living together, being together, and then working together. You have to have a pretty strong bond for that to be successful.
Sure. So I'll start because we were once divorced, and then we got remarried, and that's a whole other testimony. So you're asking, what's it like to work together, live together, play together, be together, do everything together? Well, you just got to pray. So yeah, it was a lot of learning how to communicate, right? Even though we work together and we have offices that are not too far apart from each other, if I need something, I just ask him to text me or email me because that's the way I respond.
Well, the old analogy, they say that opposites attract. We're complete opposites, and I guess that's how we attracted. But from a business perspective, we have completely different strengths and weaknesses. So that works out well because we complement each other, whether it's our real estate company, our foundation, whatever it is, we've got, we cover both sides of the spectrum really. The challenge, I think, with that, though, is that you have two different mindsets. So one's creative, one's logical. So those two personalities, those two characteristics have a hard time understanding one another a lot of times. So you have to learn to, I think, live with a lot of grace and sometimes just kind of pick and choose what things are really important, which things you just let slide.
Absolutely. It would seem as though, getting divorced and getting back together, that would make the bond that much stronger. There would be a better insight into how this would be healthy and ultimately survive in the best possible way. Yeah,
and sometimes, another analogy, I guess they say, you don't know what you have until you've lost it or until it's gone or something.
Don't know what you got until it's gone. You know the song.
Yep, absolutely. Certainly do. So, before we get into kind of the elephant in the room that's happened in the last couple of years with the pandemic, which really affected everything that we did, I want to put you two in a scenario where you're in front of a grade school classroom and you're going to do a presentation, and before anything starts, a kid looks up at you and says, "What do you two do for a living, and how are you qualified to do it?" How would you answer that?
We author children's books just for you, tailored for you about money, and you can talk about how we are qualified to do this.
Well, there's a couple different things, I think, as far as you want to talk about qualifications. One is studying, obviously. You can go to school, you can learn about whatever subject it is and become educated through that. The other part of that, I think, is experience. And sometimes what I found in college myself was that I had teachers or professors that were teaching me from book, but they had no experience in it. I went to school to be a dietitian, nutrition, and I used to battle with the teachers a lot because they would tell me something from a book, but I would tell them, hey, I've tried that, and that didn't work, out in the field, out in actual life. And their, argument to that would always be, well, this is what the book tells. This is what this teaches us. So I always had a really hard time with that. So I think it's important to, not only have some knowledge or some wisdom in a subject, whatever that may be in the industry that you're working in, but to have the experience as well, too. So with us, we went through the experience of not only making good money but losing it all and what that's like. So you can have compassion for people who are struggling. You can have compassion for people who are in debt up to their eyeballs because you've been there. So when you're trying to educate or teach somebody and then you're in a place where, you pay cash for everything, you have no debt, you're, living your dreams pretty much, then people who are struggling sometimes think that you can't relate to them. And so, when we went through bankruptcy, not only did we lose everything, see our cars get towed off, we lost our place to live, we had no place to live, and even after that bankruptcy, I still had student loans and back IRS payments, and those aren't, excusable through your bankruptcy. So I always say, we didn't start on a level playing field like most people. We started coming out of bankruptcy still in debt. And with that being said, while you're going through that process, you can't even have a bank account because the IRS will take the money out of that bank account. So I always tell people, if you have a place to live, if you have a car, if you have a job, if you have a bank account, if you have any of those things, then you're far ahead of where I was, me and Angela were when we started, because that's where we started. We started the recovery or the rebuilding or the restoration process still underwater. So when you can tell people something like that, they think, okay, I do. I got a car at least, or I got a job at least. So I think it gives people hope. And then when you can share your experience of what then you did from that point on for the next 20, 25 years and how you did it, what things work, what things didn't work, then I think people will respect you quite a bit more and they're able to connect with you and to really listen and to learn, whether it's the different principles, the money handling principles you used, or, the different types of ways that you learn from other people's experiences as well, too, what you applied and what worked.
So I'm curious, for the way that you live your life and what you do, how did COVID affect you? And how did you survive through it, and how did it change you now that we're kind of emerging and coming out of this pandemic?
Well, I would like to back up just for 1 second, because you asked us before we started that piece what you would tell a kindergartner, like looking up at you, like, why are you qualified?
Yeah.
We wrote these books for you because we were once broke and now we're rich, and we're going to show you how we did it.
Right on.
There you go.
And the kids would love it. You would have a whole cheering for you right now.
See, there we go right there. That's I'm doing the logical backtracking, and then Angela's got just the one-liner. This is how we did it.
Well, there you go.
Yay!
Exactly. And that's the yin and yang that you said makes everything work. And, and with that in mind, obviously, going from bankruptcy to money, talk to me a little bit about how you survived through the COVID period and, how did it change you?
Well, from a business perspective, back in 2008, 2009, when we had that whole economic downturn, we kind of readjusted, I guess, our business plan, if you would say. And so what we did is we got rid of corporate offices and different types of equipment and all the things that you'd have with normal business expenses. And we set up, so we're going to have people where they're going to be independent contractors, they're going to work out of their house, they're going to kind of do the same thing that we're doing. So, through that time period then and kind of rebuilding that business model, it really set us up when COVID hit from a living or a working position that it was no different for us. Because we were, working out of the house, we had our gym in our house, we had basically set up our household as like a one-stop shop for business, exercise, and everything that we had going on in our personal life as well, too, and all of our people that work for us as well, too. So that wasn't really a change for us. I think, the biggest change to adjust to, like everybody did, was if you're in business, your phone wasn't ringing, your emails weren't coming in, it was just like ghost town,
A global shutdown. What in the world?
But that was really, the turning point for us, because Angela had been on me for probably over a year to write these books, because I'd had the idea, we talked about it, I'd sketched out the different characters and stuff, and every time, when are you going to start writing those books? I always had an excuse, how am I haven't had time doing that? All the things we have going on with the family, with the business, with, our ministry, our foundation, everything, I don't have time. There's always an excuse. And so when COVID hit, the first day we were out walking, because there's nothing else you could really do if you wanted to get outside but go walk, she said, so, when are you going to start those children's books? And I had absolutely no excuses. So that was really the turning point for us to, kick off, get the books being written, and to start kind of this new chapter as far as, what we're actually doing through our foundation.
But I would like to add, too, that right before COVID shut down, we were teaching 10-week financial courses. And that's a whole other testimony. My husband was asked to teach this, through a pretty large, well-known church in Southern California. So it was like right after that. So he had put together all this awesome curriculum, and our students in class were having breakthroughs. They were getting miracles in their finances. They were having just supernatural increase. Asking to bring their children into class to learn supernatural principles, because we were applying biblical teaching to your finances and how to have breakthrough. And during that time, there was all this awesome content that he had, that he just was teaching, adults that wanted to teach their children. And so it was really a blessing during COVID, because, like you said, he really had no excuse. He just took that information that was already on the inside of him, and I just kept saying, just throw up on paper. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be good. Just put it down. I'll take it from there. I'll, help you get it out in the world. And so that's what he did. He just basically just started sketching and throwing up on paper, and, you just bring in the experts to make it super shiny, and here we are.
So speaking of here we are, all of this had to start in one place. Take me back and paint me the Norman Rockwell picture of you two meeting and how all of this began.
Okay, I'll go with this one.
Yeah, you're better at this one.
So it all started in
Here we go, the creative story.
Exactly.
1998.
Here comes the creative side. Get ready.
1995 or 96, when we met. We met at a nightclub, and it was such as the room parted, bum, 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 ba-na-na-na-na, bum, bum, bum. So the room parts, and I see this specimen of a man with a leather sleeveless vest on and all these big muscles, because he used to be a bodybuilder. This short, spiky hair. I didn't even see his face. But the room stopped, and I went, I was in my plastic skirt and my go-go boots, and I marched right on over to him, and I stuck my hand out, saw his face for the first time, and I was like, okay, this is good. The whole package right here is good. I'm Angie. He's like, well, hello, Angie. I'm Charles. And that was it. Here we are.
Wonderful.
Yeah, everyone's like, gosh, where'd you meet? We're like, oh, at a nightclub. We got divorced. Very.
Well, and didn't you open up a nightclub together?
He did open up a nightclub. I was the girlfriend at the time. He opened up the nightclub, and that was just another interesting lifestyle. I wrote a book about it. It's called Just Say No. To what? You'll have to read it. But, yeah, that was a really interesting time in our life.
We're not publishing that one.
We're not publishing that one.
That one's buried in the box somewhere, hopefully.
I know, it's burned in the fire.
Yeah.
But it's everything the nightclub life brings, right? And so after that time is when we went bankrupt, because we just didn't know how to manage our money. We didn't know how to handle finances. We didn't know how to communicate. There was just a lot of things we just needed to learn how to work together to do.
So obviously over time you gain wisdom and you use that wisdom to live a better way. But when you look back on that time period in the beginning and when you were kind of, getting together in the beginning, do you miss anything, or do you look at that and think, wow, I'm glad we survived that. This is where we are. How do you take the relativity of meeting in the beginning to where you are now?
Glad that we survived that, and glad we're not living that way anymore. One thing I've always taught my daughter in business is that, when you make a mistake, it's okay. You learn from it and you move on. You don't beat yourself up over it. And the key, too, is not to make the same mistake again. The other thing that I taught her is learn from my mistakes. Don't make the mistakes that I made, so that you don't have to repeat those same type of things. So, I think there's value in that. Like I said, earlier, when you go through those circumstances and you have compassion for other people versus if you haven't really been there before, then you really don't know. Like, you can have somebody, I think, teaching rehab for drug addicts that hasn't really experienced it before. You could, but I think there's just a whole different perspective on how to teach them, how to encourage them from when you've really been from there before.
That's an empathy piece that...
We tried to take the bad and use it for good, basically. Turn those things around and, not dwell and beat yourself up over them, but try to learn from them, move on, and then to be able to help other people going through similar situations. Because you can go like, hey, that same thing happened to me. This is what I did. This is what I learned. And it's like, it really speaks to them, is what I found.
So speaking of those grade school kids, with you triumphantly saying, I write books about, being rich and all of that, the kids are all happy and they're looking up to you as these role models. I'm asking you and turning the tables on you. Who would you consider role models or heroes in your life that have helped you get to where you're at right now?
Well, the first one would definitely be, from godly or from the church, would be Creflo Dollar. That was the very first thing I did was, okay, I don't know how to handle money appropriately, so who in the church is teaching about money? And that was Creflo Dollar that we found. And then there's been other individuals, throughout kind of, I guess, the walk of faith, if you will, different types of people that teach biblical finances. The other thing is, too, we've got advice from wealth management people that were, attached to our parents who have done very well. And, sometimes it's your parents telling you over, hey, you need to save, you need emergency saving, you need to be investing, you need to be doing these things. And when you're in your 20s, sometimes even your 30s, you think, I got the rest of my life. I don't need to save now. I don't need to invest now. It's like retirement. That's 100 years away, and you just don't want to listen sometimes to the people that are closest to you. So that was one of the main things, really, is just like opening my ears to my own parents, and taking their advice. But we have a couple of other role models, it's probably wealthy people. Elon Musk has been, a big person that I've followed, just kind of some of his business principles and his models and some of the things that he's done. Richard Branson, obviously Warren Buffett as well too. So, really a lot of different people from not just from the church, but from the worldly perspective as well too, and just kind of taking and combining those things and then using, all the elements that have worked for them and applying those to your own life.
To add to that, I would say to that kindergartner, if you don't listen to your dad, you're going to end up in the street.
End up in jail.
End up in jail. Curious George went to jail. You know why? He didn't listen. He was curious. We're here to teach you how not to do that.
Exactly. So, speaking of children's books, what was the book that you both liked respectively growing up? A children's book or a book that really you go back to or you always remember you love so much?
Mine was Dennis the Menace.
And that explains everything. You end it right there.
I love that guy, man. He always had something curious going on. He always had it into something. I was just like, yeah, I love that guy. Live through him.
Oh, my God. How did our marriage survive? I prayed. That's all I could do.
How about you, Angela? What was yours?
Mine was The Giving Tree. Yeah,
Excellent.
In the end, just the stump. All he had to give was just a place to rest. It was, I don't know, it just always stuck with me, which is great because right now we're releasing our second book in our children's series, which is Giving is Easy. So it was a nice segue. It's in no way the same, but giving was always a big, trait of mine. Sometimes I always think, can you overgive? I don't think you can outgive. You certainly can't outgive God. But anyway, giving was my thing.
So if you two could be transported right now to anybody on the planet to meet them, talk to them, be around them for a little bit, who would you love to meet and talk to that's alive right now on the planet?
Gosh, that's a good question.
Mine would be Elon Musk for sure.
Gosh, that's a good question. Probably Bill Reeves, who is he owns the Working Title Group. He's the original distributor for VeggieTales.
Yeah.
And just that journey of that huge IP of VeggieTales and where it went, and I think that would be an awesome meeting, just understanding, because, as we're plugging this IP in, with Money Mike and the gang, it has similar messaging and how he overcame just the Christian message, because, sometimes there's, it's a Christian book. Well, it's for everyone. It's not just, even though it has Christian principles that back it up. And how he navigated through that, because it turned out to be very, very lucrative for them, and they sold hundreds of millions of copies.
If there's anybody out there listening to this, or that know who you are and listen to podcasts where you're getting interviewed and follow you, and they're thinking, I'm thinking I might want to do this. I might want to team up with my spouse and open up a venture, whether it's, writing books or real estate or whatever it is. And you have the opportunity right now to give them one piece of advice that's helped you two strive and survive together. What would it be?
Good luck, bud.
There you go.
We'll be praying for you.
All right. That's it.
No.
I think kind of go back to, where we started when you asked us, how do you work together? And so I think the thing would be is to look at the value in the other person that they bring to the table, the things that you like about them, and not look at the negative things like they roll the toilet paper the different way or squeeze the toothpaste. And from a business perspective, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be like that as well too. So to look at the value and encourage that other one and their gifts and their talents and focus on that.
Stick with it. Just stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Keep going. Keep going. Don't get discouraged. Encourage one another. Keep going. You can do it.
That's one thing I tell my daughter multiple times a week. Pull your bootstraps up and go to work today. That's it. You got to be willing to grind and, be, I think what I found, as far as success in sports that I've done with my daughter, with her sports and with business is repetition, having, basically kind of a schedule that's very similar day in and day out. It's repetitive. So you're getting up at the same time, you're doing some of the same things over and over and over, and that's what creates success sometimes, is just being repetitive and just grinding.
She's a professional athlete. So what is that thing, 10,000 swings or something like that?
Well, and I just saw something that was borderline miraculous, speaking of sports, the other day. My wife and I went on a whim to a Royals game, and it was the second largest comeback in the history of their franchise. It was amazing. They scored
so exciting.
It was 11 runs in one inning. We were both delirious. At this point, and it may be the rest of my life, I have no idea how they pulled it off. They have a really bad team, and for some reason, all of these guys came together and scored 11 runs in one inning and beat this team. And it was the last home game. Everybody in that ballpark had no idea what we were stepping into. It was a moment of delirium. I never thought I would witness something like that. So, yeah, that's it. It's the grind. And those guys believed in it, and it's the future for them. So it's like they just didn't roll over. They went for it. It's cool when you can see that happen,
I love that. It's in the same principle for and if you're in the dumps or you're discouraged, just read those who have overcome, like Formula 409. I mean, at 408, he could have stopped with that formulation.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
409.
Yep.
It's just, and there's so many other amazing stories like that of people that were told no. Like even, J.K. Rowling, she's the perfect example. Kept hearing no. She was living out of her car,
Yeah, absolutely.
and now look at her, unstoppable.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at the person that invented penicillin. I think the mold grew on an orange on accident. So just there, right there, one of the biggest killers of potentially wiping out human beings was a total accident in a petri dish.
Something you just said that just stuck out to me. You said when you went to the game, you didn't have any idea of what you're stepping into. Like, you never expected to be probably one of the most miraculous sporting events that you've ever attended and possibly ever. And it's like, what an experience. But I think from a business perspective, you've got to kind of look that same way. Like I was saying earlier, you just keep grinding, you keep believing, you keep working, because you don't know. It could be a minute, it could be an hour, it could be the next day that your breakthrough comes, that you get that opportunity. You're in the right place at the right time. You meet the right person. It's like, hey, I've been looking for something just like this for a lot of years. This is exactly what I'm looking for, and somebody gives you a chance. Like that door swings open. So you never know, so you just keep going and keep going and keep believing.
That's the thing that I think I realized the most about interviewing jazz musicians. And, you hear the word improv, and it's like, okay, improvisation, I get it. But it really, truly is the way they live. These were artists that were made for a pandemic. They always are thrown into the unknown, and they have to make it look good and sound good, and that's just kind of the way life is. And they are practitioners of that. They don't go in ever sounding the same way twice, and they just really go in with the idea that they're going to mold just being alive into something that people will remember. And there's something to be said about that.
I love that. It's almost like in life, creating your own jam session, right?
Yeah.
You you just flow with your partner, and you just create new music together. I was down at the dump, but now I'm not.
That's it.
This kid's home to your parents and shout for joy because Money Mike in the game.
Musical talent is not one of Heavenly Sounds of the Hidden. I already figured that out.
You had no idea that you were going to be in a music spotlight. Maybe you have another career right there,
Oh, my gosh. Well, my dad is a drummer for a blues band, so I'll put a plug in for his band, is the GGB, Gil's Garage Band. So I grew up with my dad, the drummer, and playing, percussion, shaking the maracas, and that was about as far as my talents went with music.
Yeah.
But I was a dancer.
Yeah, you're real good at shaking it.
There you go.
Singing not so much.
Shaking my finger, no.
We all have our talent. So speaking of talent, you two know each other probably better than anybody else. So I'm curious, what is it that each of you respectively know about each other that maybe the world doesn't realize? Something really good about who you are that the outside world may not understand.
Silence.
Yeah, radio silence.
I'll start. That my husband has a heart of compassion that takes the time to actually pray for people in a really profound way, and gets awesome testimonies. I think just his heart for other people, because even on the outside you would think, oh gosh, this guy's so critical. But it's actually the exact opposite.
I would say with Angela, it's a work ethic of just how hard she works all the time. Because I think sometimes people can see the fruit of what you've done. You've been successful in business. You live in a nice neighborhood. You drive a nice car. They can see the fruit. They can see what's been produced. What they don't see behind the scenes. The hard work. Like I think about my daughter when she wins a tournament or something. People say, oh, look how great that is. But they don't understand the work that you're getting up before dark and going to bed at dark and all those things that you're doing behind the scenes. And to me, that's an encouragement to me, because it's like, I don't want to be outworked by a girl. So, it's encouraging me. It's like I was saying, I got to pull my own bootstraps up, So I think just the work ethic that she has is just very remarkable.
Thank you, Ben.
So if anybody out there wants to pick up your books and learn more about you, anything related to your world, where's the best place for them to go?
To our website, toddworldwide.org. It's got links to all of our different mentors and people that we've talked about earlier, who the people who have encouraged us. It has links to all the books which are being sold off of Amazon. It's got links to go to our YouTube channel, The Abundant Life. So pretty much anything that we're doing through our foundation is on that website.
Or they can go straight to moneymikeandthegang.com, and will just give you lots of detailed information on the books, why read the books, And of course Amazon. They can type in Angela or Charles Todd, and money is easy, giving is easy, or anything like that, and it'll pop up right at Amazon.
Wonderful. Angela, Charles, thank you very much for taking some time out today. Good luck with the next book and everything that you do from here on out. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. We appreciate you as well.
Thank you, and you too. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, business, literature, and music around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.